Hello and welcome along to another episode of Robin and Jane in the Stalls. This time round, we're right in the middle of Belfast International Arts Festival. Lots going on throughout the city over the next couple of weeks. But let's begin with a visit to the Lyric Theatre and a play called Unreconciled, which has been described as a powerful, hilarious and heartbreaking story of courage, family and reclaiming your voice. We were there on the opening night, Jane. And the first thing, I suppose the big selling point for this show is the fact that it's directed by Belfast's very own Geraldine Hughes.
Yes, it certainly is. And she's got some good material to work with, really. This is a story that belongs in the abuse literature section of the bookshop, I guess. It's a story by the American Sefton, who was brought up a Catholic and was abused within the church when he was, sadly, although not sadly, he was excited at the time about this, playing Jesus in a passion play. The director was one Father Tom Smith, and he was, shall we say, very hands-on. It is quite it's a difficult subject matter, but in an odd sort of way, I felt we could almost have known more about the relationship with this troubling priest. What we did get was a sense of Jay's family, his father, who pops up and is kind of a sympathetic character, smoking an imaginary cigarette the while, and very proud of his son, and then very traumatized when years later the story emerged in the press about what had been going on. And he was very traumatized, but his wife, Jay's mother, seemed to think, and she came from an abused background herself, that you just move on, you accept it almost. So there was a divergence there. I had mixed feelings about this. I felt that it could have been a bit stronger. It was, I guess, reasonably directed. I don't know. What did you think, Robin?
Well, the first thing that struck me was how brave the actor was, Sefton,
Yes.
to actually write this piece as well and then to perform it. And I mean, really relive the abuse that he suffered at the age of 13 every night on stage. I mean, that must be horrendous. I mean, for an actor playing that part and doing research, but to actually live that and then go as an actor and perform that as well. So I think that was very brave of him to do that. His characterizations were very good, changing from himself to the father. And then, of course, when he plays the part of the priest and does the facial expressions of...
Oh, now that was frankly sinister, wasn't it?
Wasn't
There
it?
was
Yeah.
a beautiful description of the priest's hands as being shiny and soft.
Yeah.
And something about the smile on his face was frankly disturbing. And he did that extremely well. I suppose I just felt, I don't know, it could have been even stronger, even more disturbing. That seems an odd thing to say, I know.
Because it did come with a warning before we went in, of course, of what we were about to see. Now, for me, the disturbing parts weren't the graphic descriptions of the abuse. For me, the disturbing parts were watching the images on the screen, which were the real images of Jay as a child taking part in this passion play production.
Absolutely. And I mean, there was an unnerving description of the priest putting him into costume, which was really a kind of loincloth
Yes.
for the role. And that was quite harrowing to listen to. But you're right, watching the scenes on the big screen was definitely troubling when you realized what was going on. And the priest was invited to the Sefton's home. He came into the house as a trusted man of God, which was absolutely appalling. And he wrestled Jay very physically in a room just next to the room where his parents were waiting with dinner. The whole thing seemed at times bizarre, almost unbelievable, and yet obviously you have to believe it. It was true, it was lived. And I suppose it did have the ring of authenticity. I just felt sometimes it jumped to and fro a bit. It could have had a slightly stronger narrative arc.
I think a bit that I would have liked to is maybe, and I know this didn't happen, but maybe if there was a scene put in between Jay and the priest, what would he say to the priest? What would he say to his abuser today?
Well, yes, that would be a very interesting point. Of course, Father Smith was actually unfrocked, and the whole story came out. And the church tried to pay off the victims and set up helplines, which really were fending off criticism and trying to escape to a certain extent from the opprobrium which came their way, which I think was also very disturbing at the end to see the way the church had reacted. It was very interesting because Jay focuses on the bit within the church where in confession you are forgiven, ego te absolvo, and he felt that he couldn't forgive himself. That was something he couldn't do.
And of course, the point of this play as well has been set up in America to help other survivors of abuse as well kind of come to terms with what they had to deal with.
Yes, and that's a very worthy and good idea, because it turns out that Jay has found his role as a therapist, and this certainly would be, I think, probably therapeutic for people who've gone through the same thing.
Exactly. And at the start, we did mention the director, Geraldine Hughes. Great to see Geraldine back in Belfast. Of course, I think the last time I interviewed Geraldine was probably 20 years ago when she was appearing in the play Belfast Blues. But of course, she's had a great career in theatre, a great career in the movies and stuff like Rocky Balboa and films like that.
Absolutely. No, she's a big star, and to get her backing for this was something very impressive for him, I imagine. And the fact that she has directed the play is also significant.
For a lot of people, I think, who would want to see this, it's only a very short run as well, so it only runs until Sunday, so it is well worth getting a ticket. It is, of course, a one-man show, and it runs straight through in one go in 80 minutes, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It's short and definitely not sweet. And yes, it does. I mean, it does pack a punch. I just feel it could have been a bit stronger here and there, but it is well worth seeing. Yes.
Okay, well, time now for us to make up our final decisions and give our final scores on Unreconciled, which runs at Belfast Lyric Theatre through until Sunday, of course, part of this year's Belfast International Arts Festival. So as always, we do our scores out of 5. We're going to vote with some little churches this time round. So Jane, your scores for Unreconciled.
3 churches, I think.
Do you know, I'm going to agree with you on that one as well and give Unreconciled 3 churches too. So as always, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. And of course, if you've seen anything in the theatre that you want to tell us about, join us over on our social media pages and we'll see you back in the stalls sometime very soon.
Goodbye.